The moment she rose from her velvet chair and walked past 20 perfectly dressed, charming men, the entire hall went dead silent. Nobody saw it coming. Not the judges, not the crowd, not even the man she was heading toward. Because instead of reaching for wealth, power, or perfection, the millionaire walked straight to the one man everyone had already written off. A worn-down, quiet, struggling single father, sitting in the very last row. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of looking beyond what's on the surface, take a second right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be felt, not just watched. The ballroom was lit up under chandeliers, worth more than most people's mortgages. The groom selection gala was the talk of the city. An unusual but highly publicized event hosted by young millionaire Alina Verma, known for her sharp mind, her beauty, and her fiercely guarded personal life. Alina had stunned high society by announcing she would choose a life partner through this open competition. 20 hand-picked men stood on stage, each one wealthy, good-looking, accomplished, and polished from head to toe. CEOs, heirs, models, and influencers, all wearing tailored suits and easy smiles, each waiting for their shot, but sitting far behind the lights. Nearly disappearing into the shadows was Daniel Reyes. Daniel didn't belong there. His suit wasn't tailored. It was borrowed. His shoes had been shined so many times, the leather had started to crack. His hands, roughened by years of hard labor, sat nervously on his knees. He wasn't like the others. He wasn't wealthy. He didn't have connections. He hadn't even signed himself up. A friend had done it behind his back, convinced that sometimes life only shifts when you walk into rooms where you feel completely out of place. Daniel almost didn't show up, but he had a daughter. Every choice he made, every risk he took, came back to her. He had lived a different life once. Years before, Daniel had real dreams, a steady job, a small home, a household filled with laughter. But life has a way of coming undone quietly, and then all at once. His wife got sick, not long after their daughter was born. The medical bills came fast and swallowed everything he'd managed to save. When she passed, Daniel was left standing alone, grief in one hand and a tiny, fragile little girl in the other. He worked constantly, days and nights, bleeding into each other. Construction sites, delivery routes, anything that paid enough to keep the lights on and medicine in the cabinet. Sleep turned into something he couldn't afford anymore. Dreams became the things he told his daughter about at bedtime, rather than something he still chased for himself. And yet, through all of it, Daniel held on to a gentleness that hardship never managed to take from him. He smiled quietly, talked little, and loved deeply. That night, he wasn't there to win anything. He was there because, for the first time in years, someone told him he deserved a shot at something more. On stage, the competition played out like a carefully rehearsed show. Each man stepped forward with confidence, rattling off achievements and big ambitions. They talked about business empires, world travel, luxury, and vision. The crowd applauded, impressed by the resumes. It all felt predictable, polished. Even Alina listened without much expression. She didn't smile easily. She watched, her eyes sharp and searching, cutting through rehearsed words and well-fitted suits. She had been raised inside wealth, a world where everything looked stunning on the outside, but often felt hollow once you got close enough. She'd watched relationships built on status instead of sincerity. She'd seen promises made for leverage, not love. She wasn't hunting for perfection. She was looking for something real. Then something happened that nobody had planned for. During a short intermission, while the stage lights dimmed and the crowd stretched and shifted, a small stir broke out near the back of the hall. A little girl, no older than 5, had slipped in through the open doors. Her dress was plain, her hair a little messy, her small hands wrapped around a beat-up stuffed animal. Security moved in fast, ready to usher her out. But before they got to her, Daniel was already on his feet. He crossed the room with calm urgency, dropped down to her level, and gently pushed the hair out of her face. He spoke to her softly. Nobody in the room could make out the words, but the love in his face needed no translation. The little girl wasn't lost. She was his daughter. She had followed him there. Maybe she didn't understand the event, or the crowd, or what the night meant. She only knew she missed her dad. Daniel kept apologizing to the staff, embarrassed, trying to guide her back out without making a bigger scene. But the moment hung in the air. A man who, inside a room packed with ambition and ego, had shown something completely unscripted. Love, responsibility, and the kind of quiet sacrifice nobody puts on a resume. Alina caught every bit of it when the evening resumed. Something had shifted in her. The slick introductions stopped landing the way they had before. The rehearsed charm felt like a costume. Her eyes kept finding their way back to the man who hadn't tried to sell himself to anyone, the one who simply showed up as he was. Then the final moment arrived. The room went completely still as Alina stood. Everyone assumed she'd pick one of the frontrunners, the sharp entrepreneur or the polished public figure. The anticipation tightened as she stepped down off the stage. She walked past the first contestant, then the next, and the next. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Whispers broke out. She didn't slow down. She kept moving past the spotlight, past every expectation in the room, all the way to the very back of the hall. And she stopped in front of Daniel. Time seemed to stall. Daniel looked up, thrown off, almost sure she had made a mistake. He looked over his shoulder, like she must be reaching for someone behind. Him, she wasn't. She extended her hand. With that one gesture, she made her choice. The room erupted. Gasps, murmurs, camera flashes, going off in every direction. The judges sat frozen. The audience buzzed with disbelief. But for Daniel, all of it fell away. The only thing in focus was this woman standing in front of him, looking at him, not with pity, not with curiosity, but with genuine understanding. The days that followed were a different kind of storm. The media went into a frenzy. Headlines questioned her decision, dissected it, made jokes at its expense. Half the world called it a publicity stunt. The other half assumed there were strings attached somewhere. Friends and business associates pulled Alina aside and told her she was throwing something away. Daniel took his own hits. Strangers picked him apart online. Some accused him of chasing a come-up. Others flat out doubted whether he had any real value to offer. Even Daniel questioned himself, lying awake at night, wondering whether he'd ever truly fit into a world built so differently from his own. But through all the outside noise, one thing didn't waver. What was growing between them? It didn't happen fast. Scott built the slow way, carefully and honestly. Alina didn't try to remake Daniel. She didn't dress him up or sand off his edges to make him easier to present. She listened. She learned about the years of struggle, the sacrifices he barely talked about, the depth of love he had for his daughter, and Daniel, for his part, saw something he hadn't expected to find inside a world of wealth, sincerity without conditions attached. He watched how she moved through rooms, how she treated the people most others overlooked, how she valued a person's word over their bank account. He learned that she carried her own quiet wounds from a life that looked picture-perfect, but had often felt painfully lonely. Their worlds were miles apart. Their hearts spoke the same language. The hardest battle wasn't public opinion. It was the doubt they each carried inside. Daniel was convinced that sooner or later, she'd see the gap clearly and realize she deserved someone who could match her, someone more established, more polished, more on her level. But Alina saw past all of that. She saw toughness in how he'd kept going when most people would have folded. She saw something genuinely beautiful in his kindness. She saw a man who had lost nearly everything and still never stopped loving the people in his life. Slowly, Daniel started to see what she saw. His daughter became the thread that stitched their two worlds together. Her laughter opened up rooms that had felt closed off. Her easy, uncomplicated way of loving reminded them both that the real thing doesn't have to be hard. Months passed. The headlines moved on. The world found something else to talk about. But their story kept going. Quietly, honestly, and in its own time. One evening, Somewhere far from cameras and commentary, Daniel stood beside Alina, not as the struggling single dad who got picked, but as a man who had found his footing again. His voice is worth. Because sometimes the most powerful changes in a person's life don't come from money or status. They come from being truly seen by someone who wasn't looking for anything else. If this story hit home for you, take a moment to like, comment, and pass it along to someone who still believes in love, that doesn't care what's in your wallet. Your support is what gets stories like this in front of the people who need them most. And before we close out, here's something for you. Drop a comment below that says ***. Love sees the unseen. ***. Let's find out just how many hearts this one reached. In the end, the most remarkable thing wasn't that a millionaire chose a man with nothing in his bank account. It was that she chose a good man. And in doing that, she gave the rest.